give a warm welcome to Graham Arnfield.
Thanks very much, everyone. As Keith just mentioned, my name's Graham Arnfield. Some of you know me, I know. Those of you who don't, I'm a web accessibility consultant and WordPress developer. My web accessibility consultancy. I work with organisations, some small, some medium, some big, to help make their websites more accessible. What I'm talking about there, if you didn't know already, was so that people with disabilities, impairments, or the elderly, everyone can use it. So it helps people increase their reach into customers and potential customers, and also avoids getting yourself sued, because there's a legal aspect to this as well. I'm also a WordPress developer, hence my attendance at WordPress London. And this presentation, I did it at WordCamp London in November. I know Nairi saw it there. Did anyone else actually see it? Oh, you food people. Right, come back for another. Well, if you want to see it again, I'm doing it in Sheffield, in WordCamp Sheffield in April. The slides are here. It is the same slide deck as the ones I used in November. I was too lazy to change them, apart from that, because that wasn't on the video.
Because this is so good.
Pardon?
It's because it's so good you didn't need it.
I didn't need to, sorry, yes, thanks, Nairi. It's my life coach down the front. Okay, so what I'm going to cover. When I'm testing websites for accessibility, or even building WordPress websites, this is kind of my Bible, the Web Accessibility Guidelines, published by the World Wide Web Consortium. It's known as WCAG 2 for short, because there's a lot of words there, and there's a lot of words in it as well. It's a fantastic resource for accessibility. There's loads of things in there, best practices, things you should do, things you shouldn't do, how to go about testing for stuff. It's enormous though. It's a huge, it's like a big encyclopedia, and it's quite hard to interpret in some places. You kind of need to be in it for a while. It's a bit like the WordPress Codex in some ways, although that's getting better as time goes by. So, how about if there was a simple yes/no checklist, things that anyone can do to test their own website? Easy to check using your eyes, your hands. I'm going to mention a couple of free tools that are free to download, and that's what this presentation is all about, some quick checks you can do. Now, I'm going to be talking for about 25 minutes or so. Hopefully there'll be a bit of time for questions at the end. In this time, I can only cover some of the accessibility issues that you'll come across. However, what I've chosen is the common ones that happen a lot in websites, and some of the more serious ones that happen a lot in websites. But there's a lot of inaccessible websites out there, and if you can answer these questions correctly about your website, then it's going to be, as it says there, it's going to be a lot more accessible than a lot of websites that are out there. So, let's see how we get on. The first section. Now, hands up, anyone who's done a sweepstake on the Grand National. Anyone done that? I certainly have. Okay, keep your hands in the air if you've ever had a horse that's fallen at the first fence. Yeah, we've all been there, I think, or some of us have. Anyway, this first section is about keyboard interaction, and this is going to catch out a lot of websites. So, first couple of queries, first couple of questions, you need to answer yes to these. Can I easily access all parts of my website with keyboard only? And can I easily see where the keyboard focus is? Keyboard focus is very important for some people. And I'm thinking here of people who can't use a mouse, or who choose not to use a mouse. Maybe they've lost the use of their arms, or maybe they were born without hands or something like this. Also, they might have a condition such as Parkinson's, which means that they don't have necessary precision for using a mouse properly, or more accurately enough. But it's also about blind people as well. Blind people are going to be, if they're looking at your website, looking, obviously a good word to use there. If they're accessing your website, they're going to be probably using a screen reader, and the way that they interact with their screen reader is to use keystrokes. Often they'll be using the tab key, they'll be using the enter key, the space bar, and the up and down arrow keys and stuff like that. So, an example of what can go wrong. This is a site that some of you might realise is actually based on the 2010 theme, and the first screenshot here is showing you what it looks like when I hover over the main navigation. You'll notice there's a nice change in the colour going on, and also the drop-down menu comes down. But if you start to tab around the site, this is what you see, and this is in Firefox, not Chrome. This is the default focus indicator for Firefox. It's difficult to see, it's a bit blurred, but it's actually a dotted white line. And it's a lot less easy to see than what happens when you hover over those links. The other thing you'll notice straight away is that the drop-down menus haven't appeared. And on this particular website, which has no other way of getting to pages apart from the links on the main navigation bar, if you can't use a mouse, it's almost impossible to visit like more than 50% of this website because you just can't get to the links at all. Now, this is fairly easy to fix. In your style sheet, you're going to have constructs like this, a link with the hover pseudo class with some kind of styling going on. This is what you need to be doing as well. You need to make sure the focus is in there. And why not do the same as you do for hover? It's very easy to change. You might have a few lines to change, but it's not difficult to do, and that should sort most of the situations out. Don't ever do this. I've seen this in a lot of themes. This is worse than anything, because what you're doing there is you're even removing the browser default outline from links that get focus. And so anyone who relies on keyboard tabbing around the links on a page is going to see nothing. They won't know where they are. If you're using jQuery, you might have a construct like this, some hover method with a couple of functions in. If you do that, you're probably going to need to be doing something like this as well. You're effectively attaching sort of like a listener to various links that is looking out, as well as hover, you're going to look out for focus arriving on that link as well, or focus leaving that link. Okay, here's some good news. This is a Mickey Mouse site I put together that's showing the 2014 theme that was introduced in 3.8. And the first thing you can see here, this is actually when I'm tabbing around the page. The great thing is that there's a lot of good colour highlighting on the main menu by default, and the drop-down links do appear. So that's good news on there. So there's a tick in the box there. However, I did discover the other day there is a problem with this. If this is a responsive theme, and if you make the screen narrow, I think it's narrower than 783 pixels, the main menu disappears and you get like an icon that's like what I think it's known as a hamburger icon for hamburger menus. That can't get keyboard focus. So if you happen to make your window narrower, because you might have another one open to the side or something like that, you can't actually use the navigation with the keyboard in that situation. So we're back to square one there. There's a track ticket in about that now. You can't hear the sound effects because it doesn't work, but I'll look. It doesn't matter. Right, yeah, the next two questions on keyboard interaction, and once again you need to answer yes to these ones. Can I easily access all functionality with a keyboard only? And does the keyboard tab order make sense? You'll be amazed how many times I find that doesn't happen. Here's an example of where something gets both of those wrong. This is a Lightbox plugin. It's actually shutter reloaded, I believe. Now, you can have build-up sets. It takes, I think by default, sets the image on a page and will pull them together. So you click on the image, you get the Lightbox coming up. It's got controls along the bottom there, which sort of, so you can move between the images and close it. Now, the real problem here is that if you tab around the page to the image, hit the enter key to action the link, you get the Lightbox up, focus is still on the page underneath here, so it's almost impossible to actually control the Lightbox, whether you want to move to the next photograph or the previous photograph, or close it. Fortunately, this particular plugin does recognise pressing the escape key, but not everyone will realise that that's kind of like a sort of standard anyway. But that indicates not getting to the functionality, and also indicates how tab order can go wrong as well. Okay, now it wouldn't be a WordPress accessibility presentation if I didn't mention this little baby. This is the Add Media panel in the admin, introduced, I think it was in 3.6 over a year ago. It's still unfortunately not keyboard accessible. Without a mouse, you can't do any of the stuff that's going on in here, to select images to go into your page, to select images to go into a gallery, to select an image to be a featured image. It just doesn't work, because nothing in there can get focus. And so blind users who might want to attach like a PDF or a Word document into their site or something like that, or anyone who can't use a mouse, just can't use this.
What's the answer to that, Graham?
So, good question. There is a patch out for this. These are just divs. I've got the code in a file somewhere, but I'm not going to show it to you now. But basically, each of these is like a list item that's got a div in it, I think, and that's it basically. There's a jQuery or some other JavaScript thing has attached like events to this. What you need to do, what the patch is doing, is using ARIA attributes to actually pretend that to the screen readers that this is actually a series of checkboxes. Because if you think about it, if you're adding like images to a page or you're adding images to a gallery, you're effectively emulating the functionality of a checkbox. And so that's what we're doing, what we're trying to do. There's a ticket out about this. It kind of works. It's not perfect, but it actually, we've got it working in one screen reader, but there's still little issues with another screen reader. So that's the solution.
Is that patch going into core on the next update, or when?
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping this is going to be in 3.9. The ticket itself, which I raised, is over a year old now, and I've been agitated to get it into 3.9, and I'm hoping it's going to go in there now. It's just a case of testing it with screen readers now, just to make sure it works. Okay, the next section, links. A couple of questions in here. Are your links obviously links? In the olden days of the web, say 10, 12 years ago or something like that, links were always marked with an underline, and everybody knew the convention that there's some text with an underline underneath it, that's a link. Now often what you get is this, and I've seen this in many themes, many WordPress themes. Obviously what's going on here is the designer has thought, well, do you know what, I don't like that underline, I'll just make the text a different colour. Now that's okay if you've got good eyesight, but this is a great example that I found in the theme, because obviously it's kind of a mid-grey text with a mid-green colour for the links. I don't know if you can see it at the back, but actually that's on the verge of being easily detectable, the change there. For screen readers it's not a problem, because obviously a screen reader will tell them it's the link, but anyone who's got poor eyesight might actually start to struggle with this.
Anyone over the age of 50?
Yes, like me. Right, the next question. Do all links provide enough information to state where they lead to? Here's some that don't. And this is, you might recognise from the admin area, although I think it's the previous colour now. You've got these 4 links, edit, edit, browse and edit, which sighted people can see immediately what the context of those images the links are. However, if you're using a screen reader, you're going to be using functionality like this, and this is from NVDA, which is a free-to-download open-source screen reader that is gaining popularity now. You get this elements list, and blind people, I've watched blind people using a screen reader to browse a site. A lot of them do this every time they go to a page. They do this, it's insert F7, and it brings up this list. It's cited as well, because it's not just blind people who use screen readers. But basically use the up and down arrow keys to move up and down this list and find the link that you want, and then you can follow it without having to be in the actual screen itself. Now these links do appear in this list, but you'll see that there's no context there to describe what they are. Now it's quite possible, if you absolutely insist that these links should not have like edit status, edit visibility, browse revisions, etc., etc. Now that's the obvious best solution, but if people insist that that's not going to work, or they don't want it, you can actually stuff the links with extra text, and that's there for screen readers only, but is not visible for sighted users. And later on I'll show you a link to a blog post that talks about one of the ways you can do that. Okay, media, that's the next section. Do all images have appropriate alternate text? Quite an important one. Here you can see what's going on there. I'm adding a photograph of Aldgate's tube sign to my WordPress site. The critical bit is what goes on in that box there where it says alt text. The alt attribute has been there right from the very start of HTML, and it's always been there as an accessibility feature, because this is what screen readers will pick up when they find an image on the page. It will read out whatever that was in the alt attribute. And so your alt attribute, in a nutshell, is it ought to be what the image describes or what it represents. If the image is a link to somewhere else, then put the link destination in there. I'll put here, appropriate may mean empty. Now, if it's an image that's just there to create a mood, like someone walking across a nice sandy beach with palm trees and stuff like that, it might just be there to make you feel good if it's on a travel site or something like that. It would be okay to use the empty string for your alt attribute there, and to blank out this field, because it's just there for mood. It doesn't mean anything, and screen readers know to ignore images that have a blank alt attribute. If you're putting images into your headers or your footers or somewhere else where you're not using the add media panel, don't leave out the alt attribute at all completely, because what will happen then is the screen reader will read out the path to the image and the image name, which of course may not be that useful if it's come straight off your camera. Okay, the next one's down here. Do all videos have captions? It's an obvious thing, but captions are very important for people who are deaf. In this country there are something like 2 million people with hearing impairments, and who would actually benefit from videos having captions. Also, there are people with cognitive impairments, ADHD, autism, dyslexia, who actually benefit from captions, from watching the captions and listening to the video at the same time. It helps them to understand what's going on. And also, if my parents watched YouTube on a regular basis, they might find it benefit to them as well. They're getting on a bit now, and so that's important as well. Now, I'm not going to pretend that adding captions to your videos is something that you can do in 30 seconds, but there are tools out there to help you do it. If you've got a transcript of your video, then it can be actually quite a quick process. I used to work in a corporate environment, and as some of you might have done once upon a time, and all the sound cards on all of the desktops in that corporate environment were removed. So if I was browsing the web at lunchtime, and if I was going to your site with you to look at your videos, if they didn't have captions, then I wouldn't get any meaning out of them at all. Signposting your content. Okay, 3 questions in this one. The first one, page titles, can deal with quite quickly. This is for screen reader users, really. The first thing, when you arrive at a new page, the first thing that a screen reader will read out to its user is the page title. It helps to reassure people that they're in the right place. With WordPress, that's kind of easy to achieve, really. Second two, using headings in your web, properly marked up headings in your pages, and using ARIA landmarks. Let's have a look at those. Back to the elements list in NVDA again, and JAWS, which is another industry standard screen reader, has similar functionality as well. The elements list here is on the headings, and this is actually taken from one of the pages on my website. And so, and once again, the blind person would be using the up and down arrow keys to move through this list, reads out the headings, they can find a bit of your page that they're interested in, and also you'll note that NVDA is exposing, even in the visual format here, the heading hierarchy, and it also reads it out to you as well. So that's why it's important to nest your headings properly and use your headings. The great thing about this as well, and people do this, is once they've found a heading they're interested in this list, they will action this button down the bottom here, and it will jump straight to that part of the page. So it's like an in-page link that is the functionality provided there. One of the things that I do on my websites is, beyond the call of duty maybe, is I've got a heading in here to main navigation. Now, I use ARIA roles as well, which I'm going to come on in a minute, but actually that's helpful too, and that heading is moved off the page, so it's accessible to screen reader users, but it's not visible on the page, but it's just an extra bit of information as well. So, ARIA landmark roles. ARIA landmark roles are effectively high-level signposts. This is like a typical layout of a WordPress website, or any website really. and showing the different areas. And what the ARIA landmark roles do is kind of like label those areas. So if when a person enters the banner area within the site in a screen reader, it will tell them so. And this is how you mark that up using I'm using the HTML5 tags here, along with the corresponding ARIA roles as well, and that's the attribute. There are more than, what was it, 5? There are more than those 5, but these are the key 5 that you should definitely use. And in fact, they're all in all the WordPress default themes now. They're all in there. Okay, the next one about the text on your pages. Can I resize the text in a page without breaking the layout? This is not a WordPress website. It's actually from the brand new Lloyd's website after the divorce with TSB. And it shows heading and a series of links sitting on a grey background with some other content going on underneath. And that's actually at the normal size. What happens when you make this text bigger is this: you get spillage, because the people who built this site decided that it was sensible to have a fixed background height here, and also the content underneath doesn't take any account of how big the content above it is. So you get this spillage where the links start to go over the top of everything else. Now the key thing, as it says along the bottom here, is to realise that actually resizing and zooming are not the same thing. All of the main browsers, as far as I know, offer both facilities. They'll make zooming an easier option to find, but the text resizing is always there. And the reason why it's important to do this is because zooming doesn't work for everyone. Zooming, as you all probably know, makes everything bigger. It makes the images bigger, it makes the text bigger, it makes the layout bigger. And so you start to very quickly get horizontal scroll bars. And if my eyesight's really poor, and I might want the text very big, then I've got a massive horizontal distance between certain elements on the page. So people don't like that, so that's why they use the text resizing option instead. And what that does is it just makes the text bigger, but keeps the layout the same, and keeps the pictures the same and everything like that. And, excuse me, it's very good if your design actually allows that to happen without stuff like that happening. Excuse me. Okay, next one. Is any of your text fully justified? Okay, here's a big paragraph of text and it's left aligned. And this is what it looks like when I fully justify it. Now if I flick backwards and forwards between those two, you can probably see what's going on. When it's like this, the gaps between all the words are constant right throughout that paragraph. But if I do this, what the browser's got to do that is on each line it's got to calculate how it's going to do that nicely, and so the gaps between the words are different on every line of that paragraph. Now that, for some people, is a real problem, because what you get is what's called the rivers of white space effect. Now, where the gaps open up quite large, and also where they're kind of in a line, that's what people who suffer from dyslexia might see, that's what people who suffer from ADHD might see. And so this effect can actually mean that actually it's almost impossible for them to read the text in this paragraph. So it's not good either, even though it looks like neater, some people's eyes. Okay, user inputs. Bit about forms. Do all your form fields have an accompanying label? Okay, I put together this like Mickey Mouse page. It was actually testing something else, but it was useful to use here. Got 2 columns, 2 text boxes, 3 checkboxes in each. In this side, they're marked up with properly with labels. On this side, they aren't. Now this is very important, because on the ones on this side, if I'm using a screen reader and I arrive in this text box, the screen reader will go looking for the marked up label to say, okay, so what do I tell the user they're supposed to put in here? Oh, there isn't one. So you don't get anything. It just says input text box or something like that. And if I had more time, I'd demo it, but everything like that. Similarly with these checkboxes. Here, where you get the label, it finds a label and it will read out. It will prompt you for the first name, last name, bananas, apples, oranges, and everything like that. Now I'm introducing a new tool here, and it's called Wave. And I recommend it when you want to do a quick automated check on all your pages. And you can use it in your development environment. It's an add-on that works with Firefox. And it's great. The main button to press is the one here with the red icon, errors, features and alerts. I'm not sure if you can read that up the back. And if you do press it, you get an indication like this. It does, ironically, for an accessibility tool, it uses colour to convey meaning, and also it's very visual. The green icons are where it's found accessibility features, but it thinks you've got it right. And in this case, it spots that there's an ID, this input field has an ID of first name, and the label is therefore it's marked up and it has a for attribute, so it thinks that's good. This one here is because I've actually used a field set to group my checkboxes, and that's a really good idea for checkboxes if they're related. Also for radio buttons, put them in a field set with a legend. That really helps as well. Now over here, the bad side, it's got the red icons because there's no label attached to here, and also it's got a warning one that says, actually, do you know what? It would be more sensible if you put that in a field set. There are loads and loads of icons. If you want to use this tool, there's this button up here, which is the icons key. It will give you the whole thing. But also, if you want to use your mouse, you can actually hover over this and it will tell you what's going on. It will tell you what the problem is. It's good for, it tells you, it's got the outline of the headings. It will tell you about alternate text for your images, all sorts of stuff. It's really useful. But a word of warning on automated tests. There's no one tool, or even combination of tools, that will do all your accessibility testing automatically. Because, and as I mentioned earlier, if you think I've been talking about images and text, link text and stuff like that. A lot of it's about context. So a tool is not going to know whether or not the alternate text you put on an image is actually the right alternate text. I've come across loads of websites where, alternate text on every image, but it's the same on every image. It's ridiculous. Sorry, I'll calm down. Okay, the last section, colour and shape. Is the colour contrast sufficient? We're back to people with poor vision here. This is going to help me because I know it's quite faint for you at the back, probably especially. But this is actually from the Barclays International website, and it shows how they've conquered the world and into 4 different areas. And it's always, I think it's interesting that China, Russia, and maybe Japan as well are included in their Europe office. I hope the Chinese are happy about that. But there you go. Anyway, you don't need me to tell you that this light grey on a white background is just terrible. It's just really hard to read, and similarly with the blue going on over there as well. But colour contrast, how do you measure it? In the accessibility guidelines I mentioned earlier, there's quite a complicated algorithm to work this out. You have to know the RGB values, and then you do this, you multiply that by that, and everything like that. And then there's a threshold value. So you need an app for that, don't you? And here's one you can download, the colour contrast analyzer from the Pacello group. I think it works on Mac as well as Windows. It's a lovely little tool. You've got foreground, background. You can put in the hex values here if you want to type them in, or much more useful, you just pick this colour picker tool and then hover it over the bit of the page or whatever that you're interested in and select the colour. And the great thing about it, I use this all the time when I'm doing accessibility testing, and it's also useful for, say, if a designer sends you a design and you want to test it for accessibility before you've even done a line of code. You can just run it over the Photoshop file or run it over a JPEG or something like that. It tells you immediately whether or not it's passed or failed the necessary guidelines. So I use that all the time. Here's an issue, I'll whip quickly through this. Actually on their own, they're sort of like the dark text on light backgrounds. They're all okay, they meet the guidelines, but what's going on here, and I've seen this on a couple of websites, is that the differentiation between the background of the form and the text input fields is so subtle as to actually be a problem for some people. They won't know where the actual text input fields are because there's no outline to actually help them judge it. Okay, the final question. So I need to whip along a little bit, I suppose. Is meaning conveyed by colour or shape only? This is a kind of just something I've put together. When I was in a corporate environment, it's a good example. I was in the IT area, and we all, on the intranet, they had what were called RAG status reports about projects, and they looked something like this. You want to be working on the projects where it's green, which means it's going sweetly, not on the projects where it's red, which means it's going horrible. By all means, use colour. Most people are going to benefit from using colour. It can convey a lot straight away. But someone who's blind is not going to get any meaning out of a coloured square or coloured rectangle. Someone who's colourblind also might have trouble with that as well. It might just appear as grey. All of those colours might be grey to them, or just shades of grey. The last one at the end is about shape. This was from another report that I used to see occasionally, ticks and crosses. They're okay as long as everyone knows what ticks and crosses are. But ticks and crosses often are marked up as maybe a symbol or something like that. Now, typical behaviour of screen readers, when they come across a symbol or a punctuation mark on its own, they just ignore it. So actually, your screen reader might just ignore what's in the file column. Now, if you're going to use ticks and crosses, you might want to use an image with an alternate text to go with it. That would do. Or why not just use yes and no? Or Y and N, I suppose, would work. Anyway, that's all the questions out of the way. Here's some resources very quickly. That's where you get the colour contrast analyzer from. I'd recommend using the Wave toolbar as a Firefox add-on, but you can go and bung your URL of your website in that site, and it does the same thing as well. The UI is slightly different, but you get the message. Browser tools, there's probably one in Safari, but I don't know what it's called. Don't use that stuff. Here's some 3 links. These are all, I admit, stuff on my website. How to get alternate text right, and there's a whole section about coding forms for accessibility, and an article with some methods of how do you do text for screen readers only. It's not been updated with the new method that we talked about at WordCamp London, the contributor day. I haven't updated it with that one yet, but I will do. Okay, there we go. Have we got time for any questions, Keith?
Yeah, a few.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dan?
The post statuses part, that's, this is pretty much mentioned for yourself, that's quite old code.
Yes.
In fact, it's a nightmare, and it's due to be redone shortly.
Yes.
Releases. It may be wise for you to get in there while you're on and why people are thinking about redoing it.
Well, actually, it's interesting. I've spoken to Andrew Nason on more than one occasion about that very thing.
It's a nightmare.
And there's a big resistance within some of the WordPress developers for showing more text than they feel they need to. Yeah. And there was a solution which, at WordCamp London, Neil was in the room at the time, that was proposed for this, using ARIA attributes to do this, because it gets complicated. If you try and stuff a link with some visible text, some non-visible text, if you then have to internationalise it, it can get really crazy.
Yeah, there's not even many good hooks around that area.
No.
I think if I recall correctly, a solution was come up with, and the whole ticket storm fell down when people started arguing over what the function.
Yeah, that's right, that's absolutely right. But the latest thing, and I haven't had a chance this week to look at it, but I believe that actually the function's gone now, and they're just like fixing it, because someone, ironically, one of the other WordPress developers said that people shouldn't be designing such dark UIs and everything like that, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, okay, but why don't you put it right? Okay. So thanks for that, Dan. I'll make sure that the input goes in. Yes, Rob?
Inline labels within text input boxes.
Oh, yes.
Are they readable by screen readers? Should you put another label?
Do you mean
So
do you mean placeholder?
Yes.
Okay. Well, in the actual HTML5 specification, it specifically says that these should never replace labels.
How's that working?
Yeah, well, there you go. Was it by magic? It's funny, at WordCamp London, almost the same thing happened, although we were a bit past it now, and then so the timing was better this time. And basically, this is not good, because as soon as you focus into the control, it disappears.
Yeah.
Now, some screen readers might actually read out the placeholder, but in the HTML5 specification, it's supposed to say a short, like aid memoir, if you like, and it's not to replace the label. So the problem is that basically, once you're in the field, then people are going to potentially forget what it's there. And not all screen readers will read the placeholder out, so it's just like not having a label.
So could you put the label and then hide it?
Yeah, that's possible. That's possible, if you really want to do that. Lady with the blue hair, I meant to talk to you earlier. Sorry, I don't know your name.
I just wondered, do people still use access keys? Should we be defining access keys on all of our sites?
Absolutely not. Ironically, in the earlier versions of the WordPress, what am I talking about? The WCAG guidelines, it actually did suggest that. But the problem is that there are lots and lots of pieces of assistive technology. I've mentioned NVDA and JAWS, 2 screen readers, right? But there are others as well, and there's like endless of them. And the scope for trashing keystrokes, because as you can imagine in a screen reader, there's an endless supply of keystrokes that do this, that do that, there's pages and pages of them. And whatever access key combination you come up with, it's going to pinch the keystroke out of someone's AT. So no, actually. So I sound like Margaret Thatcher, I don't know.
I just, because I just had one client that said, I must have access keys, and then I noticed in your thing you didn't mention them, so I thought I'd better check.
Yeah, well, that's a good
Big
question.
changes, so.
The thing is that every website that implements them differently. So, what's the point really?
Thank you.
Okay, so yes.
Sorry, I take it there's no WordPress plugins to test your site for accessibility, is that right?
I don't think so. I shy away from, apart from the Wave, that's a great automated tool to use. It's very quick, it will find some issues for you straight away. But as I said, a lot of accessibility is about context, and you need human input. I mean, obviously this is what I do for a living, right? But anyone in this room, if I explain them to, could go off and do accessibility testing, with a bit of practice. No, basically, not that I'm aware of. There are a couple of plugins that will try and help improve the accessibility of the website. It's less now, but accessibility is very keen on putting title attributes in stuff. Used to be more so. Everywhere had a title attribute. If you put a title attribute on a link that's got this text, right, that all it says is the same as the text, then screen users get really annoyed because it reads out the text and then it reads out the title. So it will say link home, link about us. And that gets really tiring after a while. So no, I don't think there is really. Keith?
Call it a night.
Okay, right. Well, I'm going to the pub, so if anyone wants to ask me any more questions.
Thanks very much.